Hi, today we're doing a review, and the review we're doing is Man of Steel. Alright, so off the bat, I just want to say, when this movie first came out, I really did not enjoy it. And I think that was just the comic book fan in me was like, change things, and I don't like change, and but watching it again, it wasn't as bad as I thought, and it's alright. We start out with Jor-El, Superman's father, and he's kind of trying to get help. Everything's about to be destroyed because they've taken all its natural resources. Zod busts in, he's like, listen, we're taking over the planet, there's a huge fight thing, there's a lot of stuff going on, and while you're watching it, you can see very specific things, like there's parts of it that look a lot like the Star Wars prequels, there's stuff that looks a lot like Avatar, there's a lot of like sci-fi stuff that you can see that it borrows from or like makes reference to. So Superman, he starts out, he's on a fishing boat, there's an oil rig sets on fire, he jumps into action to go to save them, and for some reason he takes off his shirt right away, which I think the only reason he does that is because like he's pretty jacked, and if I was that jacked, I'd be taking off my shirt all the time for no reason. Oh, what's that? You spilled a cup of water? Here, let me take off my shirt. Oh yes, I do have all of the abs. He goes in, he saves all the people, does the Superman thing. And the thing that I noticed just as a comic book fan, which I don't know if a lot of people would notice, but I was kind of like, oh, that's a nice touch, is they show he has limitations because a crane falls down, or an antenna or whatever it is. Some part of the oil rig falls down onto him and is about to fall into the helicopter where people are escaping, and he holds it up, but he's not able to just like toss it off like it's nothing. So at least there is setting up that there are some limitations. He's not just infinitely powerful, which I like, because I think a problem with Superman in the comic books and just as the character in general is that he's just so powerful. There's a great part of the movie, which is probably my favorite scene in the movie, is where he's working at this bar and this trucker comes in and he starts hitting on the waitress and being really rude and vulgar to her, and then he's like, hey man, you need to calm down. And the dude pours a drink on him and he's like, what are you gonna do? And Superman's like, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave, right? And the guy's like, I don't think so, bro, and pushes him, and he gets pushed back like pushing a wall. And like I really like that, because like you don't really get to see Superman like flexing in like other movies. Like Superman's usually, when he's Clark Kent, he's like, oh, I'm a wimpy guy, oh, even though I'm like 6'5" and super jacked, oh, I'm a wimp, right? But in this, Superman kind of like has a moment where he's kind of like, bro, like, you know I could crush you, right? So I really like that. I thought that was cool, just to see that this isn't a perfect Superman, because this isn't a Superman that's like, nothing can bother me, I'm really chill all the time. This is a Superman that has like, can be riled up and can get angry, and he does, because after the waitress that was being hit on, she's like, hey man, it's not worth it, and he goes outside and wrecks dude's truck. We meet Lois Lane, she comes in and it goes on a journey to go and find Superman, and this is one thing that I was kind of like, I'm not really about, because she goes and finds Superman and it takes her like, I don't know, like a day maybe. She's literally like, well, I just went and asked people questions. She's like, I just retraced his steps, and apparently like that was really easy to do, which I'm kind of like, I get that you're trying to make Lois Lane like, oh, she's really smart. I would have liked it more if you like, I don't know, she did a math equation that was really hard, and then she was like, oh, and that's why this guy's Superman, or something like that. I don't know. I don't get paid millions of dollars to write your stories. Until I do, that's what you get. You get math equations from me. All right. This is another change that I think is like really cool and interesting, is in this version, Superman's adoptive parents aren't like, you're the Messiah, you're gonna be the next, like the next greatest thing to ever happen to anyone, you have to save the world. No, they're like, you're our kid, we don't want anyone to take you away from us, we want you to be safe, don't tell anybody about anything you can do, just be chill, and like that's it. We just want you to have a good, like, happy life. We don't want anything more than that. And I think that's really cool, because in every other version they're like, listen Clark, like, you know, you don't really want to tell people about you, but like, you're basically Jesus, so you know, eventually you're gonna have to save the world. Just know that, like, go play football if you want, but no, you're gonna have to save the world eventually. So the military finds that there's a spaceship looming over Earth, and we don't know what it is, and then it's revealed that it's Zod and he's looking for Superman. And so he's like, listen, turn yourself in, well, we won't bother anyone else. We just want you. The FBI come and look for Lois, which in my head while watching the movie, I was like, well, why didn't they just retrace his steps? Oh, it's because they're not as smart as Lois, because Lois is very smart, and that's how we know. And Superman finds out that the only reason Zod is there is because when Krypton exploded, all the prisoners were let free. They kind of went on a search looking for any remaining people that were in the universe because they had terraformed a bunch of planets. And the only reason that they came to Earth was because when he went to his ship and he put in his little chippy thing, it activated a beacon and they were drawn to it. So the whole reason that Zod now is on Earth is because Superman went and did that little thing. So it's basically his fault. I kind of like this little touch too, because instead of him just showing up and just being like, I don't know, we just threw a dart at a map and Earth was the one that came up. They were brought there for a reason. This is the part in the movie where I think it kind of switches off for me. All of a sudden it just like ramps into like a monster movie, sort of like the, you know, the Kryptonians are destroying everything, everyone's fighting, which it kind of like bums me out because the story basically ends and there's still an hour of the movie left. How many times do you want to see Superman get thrown through a building? Apparently a lot. Apparently I don't know about movies or anything like that, but me personally, I was kind of like, all right, I get it. He goes through the building, he throws the guy through the building. Buildings are not as strong as Superman. I've seen this 6 times now. I think I understand. I wrote it down just in case. And then Superman kind of does like a thing that's kind of not cool, which I kind of can see, like, if he did this at the beginning of the movie, I could see why Zod would be so hostile. But Superman kind of is just like, Zod's like, listen, man, like, don't kill all of our people. And Superman's like, no, I got to, because like you guys are bad. You criminals that were locked up who weren't allowed to be on our planet are bad. Therefore, all of our people that I've never met are probably bad too. So everyone's dead. And then Zod is like, justifiably, he's like, well, you just took everything from me. And so he's like, I'm gonna go on a little bit of rampage. And it all culminates, he gets thrown through a specific wall where there's people, and he starts to use his laser vision. So Superman decides, like, you know what, there's no stopping Zod, because he's like, hey man, can you cut it out? And Zod's like, no, I'm never gonna do that. So he breaks his neck, and then that's it. Rewatching it and like looking at it with kind of a different lens, I'm like, you know what, this makes sense, because this isn't comic book Superman who's perfect. Who comic book Superman would have found like some sort of way to like stop Zod. He would have been like, well, if you're not gonna stop lasering, I'm gonna use my new ice power that freezes time, and now everyone get out of here, and then now I'm back with Zod, and now you're in the Phantom Zone. It would have been some nonsense, and like you would have been like, well, okay, Superman's kind of perfect, I can see how he could do that, right? But in this one, he has to make a hard choice, and like there's no like, I don't kill no matter what. There's like, you know what, in this moment I have to, even though I don't want to, because it's going to save people, and Zod's not gonna stop. But when I first saw it, the comic book fan in me was just like, no, none of this. I don't appreciate you lying about Superman like this. No. So at the end of that, this is basically it. Superman kills Zod. I guess everyone's fine, even though the city's destroyed, and it's a happy ending, I guess, even though all the people who died. So there's a lot of changes in this movie, and some are good, some are bad, but when it comes down to it, the way you have to watch this movie is that this is the first of something, right? This is a movie setting up who this character is going to be in the next like 5 or so movies you're gonna see, right? So when you look at it like that, like I can get on board with it more. Like when I first saw Batman Begins, I was like, all right, this movie's all right, but it's, you know, it's whatever. But what it set up was The Dark Knight, which is arguably one of the greatest superhero movies ever made. If you look at the new stuff that's coming out, like with Batman versus Superman, you can see like Batman hates Superman. They're fighting, like people when it first was announced were like, why are they fighting? That doesn't make any sense. They're bros, and that doesn't make any sense, right? But the reason that they're fighting in this is because Batman is there and witnesses the destruction of Metropolis and sees what these people can do, and is like, we can't trust them. They just destroyed the whole place, right? Which is justifiable. So it sets up, like, this movie is setting up what's gonna come. And Superman, it makes sense that he would fight Batman, because in this he's brash and he's kind of cocky, and like he can be riled up. This isn't a Superman who's just above all of this and is gonna be like, Batman, listen, I had to do this, and is gonna like explain it to him level-headedly while Batman does his Batman thing. No, this is a Superman's like, you have something to say to me? Do you even lift, bro? Let's do this. Batman versus Superman, and also Wonder Woman's there, and also Aquaman's there, and also probably some other people. So I think the final thoughts on this is that we're not really going to be able to really know how good this movie is until the next one comes out. And I think when the next one comes out, if it's really great like The Dark Knight, then we'll be able to watch back this movie and be like, I can see what they were doing. This all makes sense because it set up all these things that really paid off, right? But right now we've just heard like the setup to a joke. We haven't heard the punchline yet, so we can't really judge if it's a funny joke or not, right? Just like this, we can't judge if this is a good Superman movie or not. When we finally see who this Superman is and what he does and what really like the core of him is about, then I think we're going to be able to look back at this movie and be like, you know what, this was actually a really good movie. So those are just my thoughts on the movie. Let me know what you thought in the comments. I'm going to start doing more reviews like this, so just let me know if there's anything you want to hear me talk about. Thanks for spending some time with me. I really liked getting to know you.